To be safe and sound, and when I fall, you tied a rope to me. You're blessing me every day. I was down with an illusion, like a sparrow with broken wings, but now I shine with your reflection on me. I'm getting back up on my feet. That you showed up was written in my palm. You are a statement, explode like a bomb. I get to push myself to victory. You make me winner. You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way. You showed me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way. You showed me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. Yes, I'm the winner, yeah. 'Cause I'm the winner, yes. Am I awake or am I dreaming? So far gone, I won't look back. And when I move, there ain't no stopping me. You're pushing me up to the top. I saw the clouds looking angry, but then the sky reached my mind. And when I space out, I see the possibilities unfolding the way that I want. That you showed up was written in the palm. You are a statement, explode like a bomb. I get to push myself to victory. You make me winner. You cut me loose and set me free. You cut me loose. You make me win in every way. Win in every way. You show me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way. You show me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. Yes, I'm the winner, yeah. 'Cause I'm the winner, yes. 'Cause I'm the winner, yeah, yeah, yeah. Ooh, yes, I'm the winner, yeah. I can taste your words. I can taste your I can taste your words. I can taste your
Hey, it's Sunday Live, Spiritual Direction and Soul Care. Every Sunday at 2 p.m. It's so good to be together on the broadcast or on the replay. Really glad that you can join us as we are going through our current journey, Thriving in Uncertainty. We started last week. We're looking at 7 different strategies to help us thrive in the midst of all of this. Get some insanely practical tools for the journey. And I'm so glad to be with all y'all as we gather every Sunday and share wisdom and get healed and go deeper. And it's awesome. Mark Glazen, it's so good to see you back on. I love seeing your comments on here. Glad you're back. You're off in the world of acting. Would love to hear how acting's going. Let's set up a time to talk sometime. That would be cool. Let us know what you are doing and how your life is living. We're so glad that we can all be together here on Sunday Live. If you are watching, on YouTube or at a watch party or something, just join us. Join our growing community Facebook, our Facebook group. You can go click on there and you can come join us where you can get other content and connect with other community members. Also, the last couple of weeks, we kicked off our midweek meditation. Every other week on Wednesdays on Zoom, we get together and we do a guided time of meditation. We do a guided space of prayer, and we go a little deeper with our most basic spiritual practice, which is breathing and coming to stillness. They're guided spaces around different themes and concepts and things that you might need, and good conversation. And last week was really good. On September 15th, we talked about the process of letting go of the luggage, of the suitcases, of regret and worry. And we had a really awesome time with a bunch of you. So come on and join us. There is plenty of room over on Zoom. The next one is going to be September 29th. And it's in the Facebook page under events with all the information there for midweek meditation. And as always, you can go to spiritualdirectionandsoulcare.com, learn about our soul care program, donate, and support the work there as well. I'm really excited about this week as we look at part 2 of Thriving in Uncertainty. We're looking at 7 different steps, strategies, tactics that help us thrive in uncertainty. And I'm really excited about this one. We're going to do some reflection, some guided reflection, and kind of go deeper. So I would suggest that whether you're watching right now or on the replay, maybe quick grab a pen and paper so you can take a couple notes, because at the end we're going to have kind of a guided time of reflection. And it might be good for you to jot down some of these or to write down your thoughts later. So yeah, wanted to give you a heads up on that. So I'm really excited for what we're going to do today. So let's, as we always do, let's open ourselves to the Spirit and do our most basic spiritual practices of breath and coming to stillness as we prepare to go deeper with thriving in uncertainty. So I invite you to just simply get comfortable in a position or a posture that's most comfortable for you. And however you're going to be. I like to have my spine tall and straight, and let's breathe. Let our shoulders drop as we breathe in and out. And in and out. As I say, we are making room for the presence of God, the Holy Spirit. As our lungs expand, we imagine ourselves making space, welcoming space for the breath of God, the Spirit, who is always present and always working. We breathe. Our thoughts may be racing. I invite you to bring kind awareness to that fact. Don't get caught up in those thoughts. Just acknowledge that that's where you are. Remember last week we talked about the first step is to not resist reality. The first strategy to thrive in uncertainty is to not resist reality, just to simply radically accept what is. If you're feeling tense, acknowledge that. Bring awareness to that. And breathe through that. If you're concerned about this week, simply acknowledge that. I'm concerned about work this week. Don't analyze it. Don't try to hold on to it. Don't try to strategize about it. Just acknowledge it. We breathe and come to stillness. Our lives are full of things, worries, thoughts, responsibilities. That's okay. That's life. That's reality. Just simply hold them open-handed. They are what they are. And we breathe. Become aware of where we're holding tension, whether in your shoulders, maybe you feel pressure in your chest, maybe your legs bouncing when you come to stillness. Just send it love, send relaxation and peace. Imagine the breath coming into your body, making its way to that place, filling it with light and rest. Let us come to stillness. Continue to breathe and relax and rest. Breathe. Now I invite you to become aware of your surroundings, maybe the temperature of the air, the feel of the material of your shirt or blouse on your neck. The hum of the refrigerator. And open your eyes. Notice the light coming in through windows. Holy Spirit, we welcome you and acknowledge that you are present always. We acknowledge our own ambivalence about our lives and maybe even this moment. And we thank you that you are with us and journeying in it. And so we welcome you and ask that you would fill our minds and hearts with tender love and compassion for ourselves and others, and curiosity about how we may proceed through whatever the mystery of our lives is presenting to us, known or unknown, known and unknown. Amen. Amen. So how do you feel? How do you feel? Who's here today? Who's here today? I'm seeing varying numbers on different screens. So who's here today? Say hi in the chat. Let us know how you're doing if you're here, and how your week has been and what you're hoping for in this coming week. It is bright outside and very warm here where I am. We took a walk earlier mid-morning and we were like, whoa, man, it is hot. It is warm today. So let me know how you're doing. Judy's here. Hey, Judy. So glad that you're here. Judy joined us on our midweek meditation this past week. It was really good to see you and spend some time. And yeah, let us know who else is here. Diana, so glad you're here too. Let's just keep saying hi, throw it in the chat, and let's look at part 2 of Thriving in Uncertainty. Thriving in Uncertainty. Remember, this work, these ideas are rooted in the work of Dr. Christine Carter. And we're going to be talking about thriving in uncertainty and the second strategy, which is invest in yourself. Invest in yourself, right? So, like I said, this whole journey is going to give us, like I like to say, insanely practical tools for this basic reality that's built into life, which is uncertainty. Kat Williams is here. It's so great to see you, Kat. Yeah, so glad you're with us. This is awesome. This is awesome. So we have this thing called uncertainty that's built into life, right? And so we're going to be looking at these 7 strategies, which are these really insanely practical ways of engaging with this basic part of how life works, right? Like I always say, the fundamental mistake we make about talking about the spiritual life is that we think we're talking about something other than human life, right? And uncertainty as a feature of human life always affects us to our core, whether we're consciously recognizing it and looking at it or not, right? Like some people use the language of the soul, right? Other people might not be familiar with or comfortable with that language, but we're talking about the core, the deep core of what and who we are, right? And sometimes feeling out of control, all the time, feeling out of control affects that part of us, right? So what should we do? What should we do when we're feeling out of control, right? Because living with uncertainty is hard. And like I was talking with some friends this week, like I think being a human is so beautiful and delicious and wonderful. And it's hard. It's hard to be human, you guys. It's hard to walk this life, right? And so we crave information about the future, right? Like to help, because we think that's what's going to help us understand uncertainty or get a hold of our uncertainty or control or push down or get rid of our uncertainty, right? And so we crave this information about the future the same way we crave food or sex or other primary rewards, right? Because our brains are wired to perceive ambiguity as a threat, right? And they try to protect us then by diminishing our ability to focus on anything other than creating certainty, which in many cases is religion. Even if you don't use the traditional language, vocabulary, practices of religion, I mean, that's so much what religious practice is, whether it's poured through different vocabularies or not, is these sets of practices that oftentimes, or beliefs that are oftentimes designed to help us create or manufacture a sense of certainty. But sometimes, and maybe always, it's more effective for us to not attempt to create certainty, right? Like we're evolutionarily sort of like rigged to resist it, but we can never really know what the future brings, right? You can never really know what's going to happen next. And so during improbable circumstances like our pandemic, which has massively disrupted our routines, has destroyed some of our best laid plans, right? It's an opportunity to learn to live with this reality, right? To live with ambiguity. Like I shared last week, there was this mathematician named John Allen Paulus who says, uncertainty is the only certainty there is. Uncertainty is the only certainty there is. So knowing how to live with insecurity is the only security. So like I said last week, and I'll share these each week, there's 7 strategies rooted in the work of Christine Carter. And the first one is don't resist. We talked about that last week. 2 is invest in yourself, right? We'll talk about that this week. Find healthy ways to comfort yourself. Don't believe everything you think. Pay attention, right? Stop looking for someone to rescue you, and find meaning in the chaos. And I'm going to throw these all in the chat just so people have them. And those are the 7 strategies, right? So today, let's talk more about number 2, invest in yourself. Invest in yourself, okay? So the best resource that you have right now, okay, this is something I really believe, the best resource that you have right now for making a contribution to the world, right? For being a healing presence, for making our lives more beautiful, the best resource that you have right now for making a healing contribution to the world is you. And when that resource gets depleted, your most valuable asset, you, is damaged, right? Like, we have an almost infinite capacity to see and to desire and to long for and to know, but we don't have infinite internal resources. Now I believe we can refill up and strengthen ourselves over and over infinitely, but they go out of us, right? As we live our lives, contribute, even positively do something healing and good, that still is that's an outflow of positive healing energy, right? And so we need time to refill up, right? Like when I work in the hospital, I work with nurses who are like dealing with really intense cases, right? Or doctors who have to be there for people who tragically die, right? There's a deep cost as they pour out wisdom, compassion, and expertise. But I have the privilege of getting to journey with them and support them and encourage them. But I always tell them, even when everything's going great with the patient, every time you walk into a room and engage with a patient, there's a cost, right? We're pouring out of ourselves. So, and when we keep doing that over and over and over, right? This is not rocket science. This is not science. This is not something new for a lot of us, right? We start running on empty and we start damaging ourselves. So in other words, when we underinvest in our bodies, when we underinvest in our minds or spirits, we are breaking down our most essential tools for leading our best lives, for living fully out of love and joy, living out of a place of peace and hopefulness, right? Living out of our strengths and our compassion, right? So we need to invest in our bodies and invest in our minds, invest in our spirits, invest in that complex that shapes the core of who we are. I think, Kat, I think in the past you've mentioned is it your beloved? I think it's like a workout group or a gym or something, and you call them your beloved, I don't know, gym mates or I forget what it was. I forget, but it always struck me that you referred to the people that you work out with as your beloved, like there's a community there, right? And when you go there, you're investing in yourself, So, this may come as a surprise to a lot of you, but we humans don't do well, right? When we defer maintenance on ourselves, and we need to sustain the relationships that bring us connection and meaning. We need to get enough sleep and rest when we're tired. We need to spend time having fun, okay? You need to spend some time having fun and playing just for the joy of it, right? So Christine Carter says, don't ever be confused. Self-care is never selfish. Selfishness is an anxious focus on the self. See, selfish people tend to refer back to themselves always. They're always kind of focused on themselves in a way that is anxious and obsessive, right? They pursue extrinsic goals, like outside goals, right? Like shallow goals, like preserving youthful appearance or cultivating an image of themselves on social media, right? Selfishness is when we hunger for more money and power or approval of others, right? And that sort of self-focus is linked to stress and anxiety and depression and health problems, even like heart disease. So, I'm definitely not recommending more selfishness, okay? I'm suggesting care and growth for yourself, right? Now, when you hear this, right, you can kind of roll your eyes. I mean, even as I started, learning about this too, I'm just like, nobody wants to hear about self-care. Self-care is like so played out. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. self-care. All right. You know, I mean, you can read about it almost anywhere. Advertisers are always offering to help us achieve it, right? Like you'll see it in the app store. You know, there's another app that's about meditation or helping you get to sleep better or whatever, right? If you work in certain spaces, HR, keeps warning employees about the healthcare costs associated with not doing it, right? And, you go to Instagram and, you see people post pictures of their, getting their manicure or their pedicure, and they have the hashtag self-care, or whatever, right? And despite the ubiquitous presence of this concept and its popularity, right, most of us, though, still struggle with learning to put ourselves on the front burner and really invest in ourselves and really care for ourselves and really heal and restore and spend time, pouring in and supporting ourselves and doing the things that keep us healthy and growing and vital, right? So I'm not interested then, therefore, in giving you like a list of 25 questions, or telling you to find a 10-minute yoga app while sitting at your desk app, or whatever, right? I want us to get into the deeper stuff. I think that in the long run, that's the most practical. That's the most real place you can go. I've heard this said, and I really believe it, that when it comes to caring for yourself, the biggest obstacle to our own self-care is that we don't feel like we deserve it. We don't feel worthy. Like we see it only as something that maybe we should do so that we don't burn out, but it's always got to be for the sake of somebody else. But like it's a thing that you deserve and need, And that big impediment, this idea that the biggest obstacle to our own growth and care that we don't feel worthy of it. We don't feel like we deserve it. This insight comes from this really wise teacher named Denora Neves. And she says self-care is largely about self-worth. Like you can't practice self-care without feeling the self-worth, right? You can't practice the former without feeling the latter. It's not simply about the hows and whys, right? It's about truly believing that you deserve it. Mark says, I've noticed I tend to feel guilty if I'm not doing something productive. Like we could talk about that all day, okay? Like there's so many stories. There's so many stories that we've been told, right? Our upbringing, our social class, right? The assumptions of our social class, the inescapable structure of American business-focused capitalism, right? That your worth is rooted in what you do and what you produce, right? Like that's that big overarching story that we tell ourselves, right? That's just kind of in the air all around us, whether somebody says it or not, right? It's not about the hows and the whys. It's about truly believing that you actually deserve it. It's about actually doing the very practical work of really taking stock of how you conceive of yourself, right? Because you can learn how to do it. You can be given the 25 steps or the new app or the 6 practices or whatever, and you can understand intellectually why you need it, but you'll never fully engage in it, right? If you don't really believe that you are worth it, that you deserve it, that it's essential to vital, healthy human functioning, right? It's only when you truly believe that you are worth that investment that it stops being a goal and finally becomes a practice, right? So, like I said, the biggest impediment is that we don't feel worthy. See, self-care is largely about self-worth, right? So it can be done, but you have to be willing to challenge some of what you've been taught, right? That it's selfish, that altruism, generosity, and selflessness are the virtues of a good person, and any hint of this over here is not good, right? You have to be willing to challenge the idea that putting the needs and wants of others before your own is what makes you a good parent or a good partner or a good son or a good daughter or a good employee. It's important, absolutely, to be compassionate and kind and considerate. We've talked about that a lot over the last 4 months, right? Compassion is huge for ourselves and for others. But how often do we do it? Do we do it at the expense of our own well-being, right? How often do you do that at the expense of your own well-being? How often do you tell yourself, what I need is not important right now, or I'm not any better than anyone else that's struggling? Okay. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? Judy says, I think investing in oneself perhaps is a recognition that hope itself is not something out there. Hope and worthiness and love and truth is God himself who resides within and is complete. We seek to change our uncomfortable realities in the now, but there is hope because God is in there inside of us right now. Yeah, I love that. I love that, right? And so how do we cultivate a deeper connection within with this God who is present within us, right? Like, how do we do this? Well, you can't do it by just going out and pouring out all the time. You got to have time to commune with that deep, true core reality, right? I mean, one of the ways that we get really taught, especially if we come from like religious church background, right? Like, one of the ways that we get taught where the groundwork for this is laid is in how we skip over in our origin story in the Bible, right? Like this origin story that's supposed to give us a framework, not of like how the world came to be, but what the world is and what kind of ultimate creator we're saying what is the ultimate reality we say we're believing in, right? One of the ways that it lays the ground, we lay the groundwork for this other stuff about like pushing you to not think of yourself, to see it as suspicious or suspect or potentially dangerous or sinful, right? Is the way that we focus so much, right? We focus so much on the third chapter of Genesis, but we don't really take time to immerse ourselves and luxuriate in and marinate in the first couple chapters of Genesis, where you see this constant outpouring of creativity and generative love that God is delighting in and making, and things are coming forth, and God is saying, that's good, and 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 oh, that's good, and that's good. And then God makes humans, says they're very good, right? And like, we don't spend any time there. It's like a lot of us grew up in churches where we do all that, and then we skip immediately to chapter 3, where everything seemingly goes wrong, and there's original sin, and everybody's bad, and you're inherently bad, and everything about you is bad, and even the good things you do are suspect. And it's like, maybe we need time, right? See, I see a direct connection from that. To the way that we then are taught, we're given the theological basis, the religious basis, to devalue ourselves, to deny that the God who made us, if you use that language, that's the language I use, the creator or source that made us with this need to invest in ourselves so that we can fully be the self that we were meant to be and intended to be, so that we can live with others in harmony, in peace, in vitality and joy, all these things, right? But if we are always emphasizing humans, they're bad, right? It's like they're made in the image of God, whatever that means, and they're bad and they're sinners, right? And it's like, okay, we know we're broken, we know we're limited. That's why even when I'm doing good things, I get tired and I can't keep doing good things. And then I come home and I'm grumpy. We get it. But instead of moralizing about that, maybe we need to put the brakes on that and go back to the first couple chapters of Genesis and just live there for a while, and just really luxuriate in the divine word of it's good. The delight of God, the generative capacities of God, right? To say, I'm made in the image of this generative, creating, healing, loving God who delights in it and delights in me and says that I'm very good, right? It's not asking you to deny your pain. It's not asking you to deny your brokenness. It's not asking you to deny the complicated realities of what we are as human beings. But maybe if we started more thinking about emphasizing the controlling idea is original blessing, right? As the ideal and the baseline for us, as opposed to original sin, right? It's not denying the reality of those things, right? But it's a matter of emphasis that I see sets a trajectory that sets us up to say we're we're bad, right? We're totally bad all the time, right? Kat says, this is making me think about a pattern of outsourcing the question of what I need or want to an external expectation. It sets up a cycle of inattention to my own needs, followed by resentment of others whose needs I'm trying to meet at the expense of attending to my own possibilities. Yes, absolutely. It absolutely is. I love that outsourcing to an external expectation, right? Like, because if you pursue too much of what you need, then maybe you're being selfish, and that, and that's a sign of like why you're bad, And Venice says, I had to prioritize what I really needed today, and it took so much to convince myself that I was still a good person while implementing boundaries, right? And like, that's the thing too, is like boundaries are for you. like, do you see how this thinking gets us so twisted that like even something good like boundaries, right? Like boundaries is for you, right? Like boundaries is to enable you to take off and fly, right? Like even in church world, especially, like I saw so many people talk about boundaries in this moralistic others way of like, I'm setting boundaries on them. It's all this at each other, right? Do you get are you picking up what I'm putting down here? You know what I mean? Like there's just this tone, there's this emphasis, there's this 1 degree off that leads us eventually down this road where everything is a problem and it cuts us off from the actual thing we need that we were actually designed to access so that we could flourish, right? It sounds like it's giving us access to something good, but it's always cutting us off from it and keeping it just out of reach, right? It's like, so I think like, what would it look like for us to have a moratorium on the emphasizing and making sure everybody knows what's wrong? Why not let's just go full bore into we are blessed. We are creative, generative, complicated creatures who are designed by design to invest in ourselves and invest in each other, but invest in ourselves so that we can keep fully being healthy and full of love and be exactly the way we're meant to be as ones who are delighted in by God, right? Let's do it. And the fact that some of us get nervous about that, right? I mean, I'm sure someone's going to be watching now or on the replay, or some church folk, if they hear about this stuff, right? Like church people always, doesn't matter what church, but like church folk, like they get nervous. Why? Because, there's this, like, I need to make sure nobody else is, it's like, stop trying to control other people, like stop trying to control other people, get your blessing, invest in yourself, right? Like pour into yourself. You actually deserve it. You're worth it. God made you, designed you so that you could not function without it. So it's good and right to invest in ourselves, What would it look like if we really took the original blessing of Genesis 1 and 2 to its logical conclusion? If we chose to emphasize that, right? Judy says, acceptance of reality is acceptance of your spiritual substance, that you are by nature innocent and good, a soul that is the divine child of the Spirit of God. Yes. What if we just kind of like, like with an awareness that we're not going to deny the complicated reality of life. Life is hard, right? Being hard, we're complicated. I get it. But like, what if we just started there as our cornerstone bedrock and tried to live into that always, right? To me, it would mean that it would be way easier. It would be way easier to then invest in yourself, because you would see it's how you were designed and it's what you need and you deserve it and are worth it. And you can't function without it, right? So we always convince ourselves, that our needs and our joys don't matter. And all the while sending that very same message to others, right? Like that's literally what we were just talking about. We've codified it in religion, right? Yeah, what it would be like if we took the blessing of Genesis 1, it's a word. I need it. I don't know I'm glad you're picking it up, but like I need it, right? Like we all need it, right? I don't want to pass that message that my needs and joys, I don't want to live in that my needs and my joys don't matter. And I don't want anybody else to feel like their needs or their joys don't matter, right? Because then when people follow that cue, then they disregard our needs right? And then we get mad, right? What's wrong? Why are you mad? You told us that, selflessness and holiness and what being right means we don't think about each other. We don't worry about those needs, right? We just knew that they would take care of us if we just took care of them. But why do we use our time, our energy, or money to take care of ourselves, right? Not to the exclusion of kindness to others, but as a set priority in our lives, right? As a spiritual conviction, knowing that we cannot fully be what the Spirit of God is unfolding within us and in the story of our lives without it, right? Why didn't we believe ourselves worthy of our own attention, right? I mean, think about it when we do midweek meditation or when we do it at the beginning of Sunday Live, right? We are coming to attention to ourselves. We're paying attention to ourselves. We're acknowledging that we are here and that we are waiting and that we are open and we want to be filled and refreshed and we're worthy of it. We're desperate for it. We're made for it, right? That's the question to ask and the thought pattern to change, right? Why don't we believe ourselves worthy of our own attention? How can we, you can't, do you see the incoherence? Do you see the incoherence of saying we believe in a God who's head over heels in love with us and is concerned with us? And, the scriptures have beautiful language about the God who captures our tears in jars, who treasures our tears and puts them in jars and like is near to the brokenhearted and heals those who are crushed in spirit. Like the ultimate reality of God is consumed with God's creation and is obsessed with us and cares for us and loves us. And yet somehow we're not worthy of getting on that train and co-creating there and being present in that with us. Like somehow we're not allowed to do it, right? We're not allowed to participate in that somehow. Isn't that weird? Right? Isn't that weird? That's the question. Why don't we believe ourselves worthy of our own attention? So, like I said, get pen and paper maybe. And I just want to lead us through a guided reflection. And if you struggle with taking the time or spending the money or finding the energy to put yourself first, these questions are for you. So that means this is for everybody, all right? Because we all do this in our own way, okay? Right? And I want you to stop moralizing about the money thing too. We all got to be wise with our money, but it's okay to spend money on that, extra thing, right? If it's good for your soul, like you can do it. All right. Might have to sacrifice other places, but don't be afraid of that. Right. So here's some questions. Okay. I want you to just get comfortable, maybe get a pen, paper, whatever, or if you just want to listen and reflect, right? I got a ton of questions. Right? That will lead us through the negative side and into the positive side of how we conceive of ourselves, right? And the things that affect our ability, right? To understand that we are worthy of our own attention. Okay. Here's the first one. Before we dive in, Mark says, I think it's been so ingrained into my brain from growing up in the church that I need to be selfless, that it's hard to focus on myself and what I need. Yeah. It is. That's what I'm saying, right? And Judy says, when one really believes in the universal Christ that dwells in oneself, the presence of Christ, the all-pervasive presence of Christ in oneself as a soul, the voice of the inner critic starts to slowly sound less credible, more like the accuser, just trying to distract. Judy Gubinski. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. And this will connect too to one of our later things. I'm like, don't believe everything you think always, right? Like those voices, right? Like, if the voice is saying step away from joy, step away from peace, step away from delight, then maybe it's not the eternal voice of God, right? So here's some questions. Okay. First set of questions. What negative thoughts about who you are you holding on to? What negative thoughts about who you are you holding on to? And when have I felt, when, like, when have you felt weak? Right? When have you felt weak? And were you really weak in that moment? And if so, so you're weak, you're complicated, right? Why do you feel guilty? Some of us pour this through the filter of guilt, right? Why do you feel guilty, right? Why do you feel shame? What memories make you feel small? What memories make you feel small? One of the best distinctions that I've ever heard, right, is that you can always tell that accuser voice, right, that fills you with shame, right, that fills you with shame, is oftentimes this very generalized, non-specific feelings of malaise, right? Right? If there's just a generalized, I'm anxious and I'm not feeling good and I feel bad about myself, that's not of God. Right? So when have you felt weak? Why do you feel guilty? What memories do you have that make you feel small? I see you, Mark, in the comments, man. That's real. That's real. We're holding space for you, man. Let's all hold space for each other on these ones, right? Here's another set of questions. What thoughts of scarcity do you believe to your core? That the world is never enough. There's never going to be enough. The fear that you have, why don't you believe you can access abundance in relationships, abundance in your spiritual life, abundance in your professional life, abundance in every part of your life, right? Why do you feel like you're running out of time? Who told you? Here's a key one. Do you see your energy, your spiritual energy, right? Your psycho, emotional, physical energy? Do you see that, your energy, as a resource that is worth replenishing in your life? Do you see that as a resource that's worth replenishing? Right? Because we all know intellectually it is. You can't function in life without it, right? But do you really believe that it's a resource that's worth replenishing? Here's another set of questions. Who taught you that your needs weren't important? Who taught you that your needs weren't important? Because it's very rarely just one set of voices. Sometimes it can be a big personality in our lives, but maybe it's the way they parented, or maybe it was whoever, right? But who taught you that your needs weren't important? Was it that boss that gave you your shot in your career, but also really strangely diminished you as well? Who taught you that your needs weren't important? And when have you felt abandoned? When have you felt ignored? When have you felt unheard? Here's another set of questions. What are you so afraid of? What do you think will fall apart if you take a moment to invest in yourself? What are you scared of losing? Right? You can fight the tendency to believe old stories and search for the truth that's within you, right? That voice of the spirit that speaks life and joy and delight over you, that was spoken at the very beginning of all time, at the unfolding of creation, the delight of God, who spoke forth all things, and as they appeared and unfolded, said, man, that's good. Oh, that's good. Like, I love to think of like God as like this one who is bringing forth stuff and just like, like stars and all the things that we learn about stars, right? That we know about stars now, and God just going, yeah, you know what I mean? Like that's the truth that's inside you, right? Whatever language you use, that which is the ultimate center of reality, the great beating heart at the center of all things, the God who is love that holds all things together, is a community of delight, not only within God's self, but in you, right? God makes humans and goes, oh man, that's the best thing. Very good. Yeah. Well, do you believe that God's still speaking that over your life? Do you believe that? Do you believe that? I do. I don't always make the work to invest in myself either, right? I don't always fully believe it. I need to put it into action, right? But do you believe that God, man, when God thinks of Kat, he goes, yes. When he thinks of Mark and Diane, he goes, oh yeah, right? Or whoever you are on this thing, on this broadcast or the replay, just your name comes to mind and God is like, yes. Absolutely. One of the best things I ever did. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's amazing. I don't think it's a far leap from that to investing in yourself then, right? So let's challenge those beliefs, and let's ask ourselves some positive things that can help cultivate an imagination for transformation for ourselves, right? Like, what positive thoughts about yourself can you focus on, right? What strengths do you bring to the world? What accomplishments should you feel proud of, right? What are the things that help you know your value, right? How about this? What thoughts of abundance can I adopt? Can you believe that you're worthy of your time? You are worthy of your time, even if it's the last minute of the day, right? Can you believe that you're worthy of your money, even if it's your last dime, right? Can you believe that you are never too tired to care for your needs, right? With the caveat that sometimes one of the best things you can do is just go take a damn nap. Can I get an amen about that? You know, right? How do you know that you are important? Oh, well, when have you felt helpful? When have you felt supported? When have you felt at peace? Right? How do you know that you're safe? When have you pulled back only to have things work out well anyway? When has one door closed only for another one to open? When has someone come through for you despite your doubts? See, sorting through these thoughts and feelings and beliefs are the first step. This is the granular work, right? And every answer to every question will bring you so much closer to this tactic, this strategy to thrive in uncertainty, of investing in yourself. This is the deep mindset, soul work questions, you guys, right? Like that, I think you're wise enough, strong enough, open enough to dive into and do, right? I didn't want this session to just be another, find this app and listen to this song and do this, you know? You know what I mean? I wanted you to really look in and look at the stories that you're buying and the stories that you could take up, right? One of the most powerful things, I just said this the other day. I just said this today, actually, and I want to share it with you. that goes to this, right? There's this writer named Andrew Lester, and he said, God chose to create us with the capacity for narrative structuring, right? Storytelling of our lives, telling our own stories, right? Telling us the stories about if we are safe, if we are valued, if we are not valued, if we are unsafe, right? Has given us the capacity for that structuring so that we can participate in the creation of our own self. Okay? And see, every religion that emphasizes you're bad, or in the backdoor way, you are not your own, right? As this framework for all of reality out of the context in which those stories are told or those claims are made, right? Those are usually authoritarian religious spaces. And I don't think they're there to be trusted, because they tell you that they're going to give you the pathway to health and self-care and life and joy, and you never get there. You never get there. And if you do start to get there, you're kind of punished or looked at suspiciously. Like it's like they only talk about everybody being sick, but nobody's ever allowed to get well. Everybody's, you know what I'm saying? Like my dog's barking because my kid just came in the door. So it's like, like there are these authoritarian spaces, right? And I don't think that you should be trusted, that they should be trusted, right? Because they're consumed with other people's business. They're consumed with people's private choices. They want to tell you that you're going to get healthy, that you're worthy, that you're made in the image of God. But man, don't actually act fully in that space, right? Because then, then we got to reel you back in, right? And it's kind of gross. So no thanks, And the reality is beyond, right? Like the reality of this is beyond when you dig into these questions and you start answering these questions and you really start assuming, understanding things. And I have to tell you that this is love. My wife just walked in. Jill just walked in with a banana split. This is love, you guys. This is pure love. See, self-care. That's what we're talking about today. Self-care. Is it really all that good for me healthfully necessarily? Maybe not, but I can go for a walk and I can eat some grapes later or some fruit. But right now, I'm going to receive a soft serve ice cream and whipped cream with all the good stuff on it, because this is one of the ways I know I'm important and I'm loved. Oh, it's so good. I know it's wrong. I know it's wrong for me to do this to you, but it's so good, y'all. There's banana in it, so that's as healthy as it's going to get. Amen. All right, that's love. All right, but see, so what am I saying? What am I saying, right? The reason why this is kind of hard for us too is not just because of these layers of religious layers, like, right, are telling us to step away from it, don't go near it, right? But it's also because we're terrified of our own freedom. We're terrified of the hard work of love and loving ourselves, right? So that we can love others. We'd rather focus on restricting. So many times religion would rather focus on restricting other people with the you're bad, bad, bad language, right? Because we can't have them enjoying what we're all made to enjoy, because we can't bring ourselves to enjoy it with them, right? So these questions that I've been asking you, right? These questions I've been asking you today, and come back and watch the replay and watch it again so you can get these questions, right? Maybe I'll post all these questions in a post in the Facebook group. But the questions, right? All these questions really come down to the fact that the deep question is, who told you? Who told you you couldn't delight in who you are? Who told you you couldn't delight in who you are and what you have and what you dream of and what you long for? Who told you you couldn't delight in those things? Who told you you can't have what you have and should feel bad about what you have? Who told you that you shouldn't have those dreams, or the dreams that you do have to be approved and poured through some weird God language to keep everybody else off your back or happy? Who told you that, right? Who told you that? Who is cutting you off from the God-given freedom and power that you have to significantly change your past and present stories in order to pursue new stories for the future? Who's cutting you off with religious language, self-doubt, low self-esteem, the voices of your parents, the voice of the abusive uncle, whoever it is? I don't care who it is. You know who it is, right? Who's cutting you off from your God-given freedom and power to change your past and present stories so you can imagine and create and write new stories for your future? Because that's what the new creation is. That's what the new creation is. And that's the new creation unfolding, is the new story for the future that today you can choose to invest in yourself to support, create, and manifest as you live your life. That's what it means when creation says, when the Bible says, if anyone's in Christ, they are a new creation. The old is gone. The new has come, right? Take a hold of it. That is your co-creating power that Andrew Lester talks about. Like, do not listen to any voices. The voices of accusation in your head, the voices of the trauma that you've carried and believed, or the religious authorities. Don't listen to those voices. Don't give them that power that tell you that the new creation, a new future, the new reality, investing in yourself, that will unfold from this self-care, right? Don't tell them that that's some vague spiritualized concept that you have to wait for another time, right? To be deferred for another time for their approved version of what they call holiness or righteousness or whatever it is now. Don't listen to those voices. I don't care who they are. Don't listen to those voices, because the Bible says now you are the children of God. Now you are the children of God, beloved. And you don't know what you will be, but when you see God, you'll be like God. And I think that co-creating freedom, that investment in self, is tastes of seeing God so that you become more and more like the one that God intended for you to be. That's the immediate right now work. That's the immediate right now work of co-creating freedom that is yours. See, self-care is about co-creating freedom, right? Within yourself. That's the promise of new creation now and to come. And no human system of thought, no trauma, no person, no assumptions, those things are not allowed to regulate or restrict that for you. They are not allowed to do that. They're not. That's my fired up little bit of sermon for you today. That's my good news for you today. That's my gospel to you today. All right. And this is my gospel right now in the form of a banana split. I just got to tell you, the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. Yes. All right. Let's go to some comments because I love y'all. I want to see. Betsy says, EMDR therapy was really interesting experience for me to rewrite my memories of traumatic events. I have a beautiful story about this I tell you sometime. We are allowed to rewrite our stories by leaning into the truer truth. Even neuroscience validates that we are allowed to do this. Yes, this is key to so much of everything. This is key, this narrating power, right? And Judy says, wow, I suspected but never really connected the co-creation. The prophesied regeneration of heaven on earth is our new story and probably has real regenerative but healing effects in people's brains and bodies when we allow it to come to fruition. Yes. And see, we talked a lot about the stories that we've been given, right? From other people and from religion and churches and things like that, right? You know, we talked about this, right? And it's like, because that's what gets in the way of our own bodies and brains experiencing healing now, right? This is why in the recovery world, why they say to people, work your own recovery. Work your own recovery. You guys have heard me say this before. There's some truth in that, right? Which is what? You can be alongside and journey alongside people. It doesn't mean you're alone. It doesn't mean you don't have friends for the journey, companions for the journey, but your work is your work. And way too often, the stories we have make us feel like we're responsible for other people's work, or we get in other people's work and tell them how to get on their schedule, right? We try to put people on schedules, right? Like, I recently saw a young woman who had attempted to take her own life. And she was really in a bad spot medically. And, but she came out of it and she was okay within like 36 hours of the incident. Okay. Her first full day where she's awake, completely off sedation, but she feels sore, right? All over because of the interventions that had to be done and the injuries that she had sustained, you know. And I watched her family in the first 24 hours here, the first morning that she's finally stabilized, fine, and functioning again. They dive in on her, start not expressing concern like this had to be scary. We're really concerned for you. We love you. But started to give we need to have the heart to heart about the bad choices you're making. And I'm sitting there going, this is the first morning that she can function. Like it's not time for this conversation. And do you see how your own anxiety, your own issues, your own contributing things in this family system is contributing? This isn't going to help, right? Because you're not doing your work, right? But you're all up in this young person's work. You're all up in her work, right? She's young adult. She can do her own thing, right? It doesn't mean it's wrong to be concerned. It doesn't mean that you can't be there. It doesn't mean that they might even at essence was saying was wrong. It was probably the right thing, right? But it wasn't the time. It wasn't the time, right? Because everybody was so caught up in the narratives of being all up on everybody else and coercing everybody else and thinking that if I coerce all y'all over there, then somehow I'll be healed. No, you got to do your work for you. That's part of what self-care is too, right? Is investing in yourself, is about keeping you out of other people's business too. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? You can't do their work for them, right? And oftentimes our frustration about other people not working at the pace we want is because we're just doing everything we can to avoid really looking at ourselves, you know? So, man, what a great day today together, y'all. I got a banana split. Oh, y'all, wisdom on here. It's amazing. It's amazing. Mark says meeting people where they're at is so important. Yep. Howard Thurman, I'll leave y'all with this. Howard Thurman says that the essence of love is to meet people where they are, as they are, and treat them there like they're already where they're supposed to be. You meet people where they are, as they are, and treat them there as if they're already where they're supposed to be. Right? Isn't that amazing? Because that frees us then to go do our work, to go take the nap, to go work out if that's what you need, right? To go have that moment of silence, right? To get that mani-pedi, right? Whatever it is, right? It's for freedom that you've been set free. May you be free today to care for yourself. May you truly come to believe that you are worthy of your own attention. Because under that self-kind awareness is all happening under the loving gaze of a God who is absolutely taken with you. Know that today. I love you guys. Let me know how I can support you this week. Throw it in the chat, and we'll see you next Sunday for part 3, and on September 29th for our midweek meditation together on Zoom. More information on the event page, on the Facebook page. Have a great, great week. Make it great. You're amazing. What a privilege to spend time together today. Love you.
You're like a circle that floats around me, keeping me safe and sound. And when I fall, you tied a rope to me. You're blessing me every day. I was down a sparrow with broken wings, but now I shine with your reflection on me. I'm getting back up on my feet. That you showed up was written in my palm. You are a statement, explode like a bomb. I get to push myself to victory. You make me winner. You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way. You showed me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way. You showed me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. Yes, I'm the winner, yeah. 'Cause I'm the winner, yes. Am I awake or am I dreaming? So far gone, I won't look back. And when I move, there ain't no stopping me. You're pushing me up to the top. I saw the clouds looking angry, but then the sky reached my mind. And when I space out, I see the possibilities unfolding the way that I want. That you showed up was written in my palm. You are a statement, explode like a bomb. I get to push myself to victory. You make me winner. You cut me loose and set me free. You cut me loose. You make me win in every way. Win in every way. You show me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way. You show me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. Yes, I'm the winner, yeah. 'Cause I'm the winner, yes.
Hey, what's going on?